Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alana and today we will be discussing the books that I read in the month of November. In November I did finish a total of 6 books, 4 of which were audiobooks, 1 of which was an ARC or advanced reader copy, and 1 physical book. So overall, not the best reading month for me, but that is also because I am making my way slowly through this very chunky book, The Eye of the World. So I'm still a little bit over halfway through this one. This is why I'm attributing that I had a lower reading month than normal, because this is taking a lot of my time at the moment. But that is okay because I am enjoying it, but I just thought I'd mention that I'm still reading this and that's where I'm up to. But let's just go ahead and jump right in with the first book that I did finish, and that was Dracula by Bram Stoker. So for those of you that don't know, I have not done any of the classics. Somehow I made it through all of my schooling life without having to pick up certain classics. So now I'm trying to work my way backwards. I'm not 100% interested in a whole heap of them, to be honest, but I feel like if I start off with the kind of gothic era, it may lead me into the rest of the classics. So Bram Stoker's Dracula was a great place for me to start, and I ended up really enjoying this one, although it did kind of drag in some points, but I ended up giving this one a 3.5/4 star. I was also not aware of how Dracula is told, having never read it before. It's actually told through letters and excerpts and recollections, which I thought was a really good way of telling the story, and I highly enjoyed it. I read this one via audiobook, which was also a really fun experience because the voice actors just had a lot of fun with this. Like I did say though, it could have been shorter, but it is a classic, so it is in its own kind of field. Essentially, Dracula is the tale of this vampire, Dracula, and him trying to move from Transylvania and infiltrate London and the New World. And it's the people around him who come in contact with him or who have accidentally helped him along the way, and then they have to band together to try and overcome this ancient evil figure. So we do get a whole bunch of different perspectives in this, which we all know is something that I do love. And I think my favorite thing about this was the diary-like format and the way that it was told. That was definitely a highlight for me. So yeah, that was my experience with Dracula, and I have been told that I should read The Picture of Dorian Gray, and I also want to try Frankenstein at some point, but we shall see. Just to continue on with me dipping my toe into classics. Next up, I finished a delightful and heartwarming gift book, and that was Big Panda and Tiny Dragon by James Norbury. This is very much in the vein of The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse by Charles Mackesy, I think. So if you've liked that, then you will love this one. A book for all ages, someone that you could give to a child, a teenager, an adult, an elderly person, just very full of heartwarming moments between Big Panda and Tiny Dragon and them going through life, and just a feel-good, quick, easy read. So I really enjoyed this one. It had more of a clearer illustration style than The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse, which was more broad watercolor strokes. I enjoyed the art style of both of these, and they were both really good in their own right. They were different enough to make them their own things, but the similar feeling and affirmation type writing made them feel similar, but they were still their own things. You also have text which is typed onto the page in this one, whereas in the Mackesy one it is handwritten by him and very flowy. So yes, very heartwarming, made me feel emotional, loved it, 4.5 stars. Next up we have a short story / novella, and that is Opal by Maggie Stiefvater. I listened to this one via audiobook. Battery change. Anyway, I absolutely adore the narrator of this one, who also got to do the Raven Cycle and also the Dreamers trilogy, which is from Ronan's point of view. So Opal very much takes place, I think, between the last book of the Raven Cycle quartet and Ronan's book, or it could be just after Call Down the Hawk, which is the first Ronan novel in the Dreamers trilogy. But essentially, this book is all about Opal, who is his psychopomp. And without getting into spoilers, it is from her point of view, and it's just about her being at the Barnes and just being in her headspace, which is weird and wonderful, and it was a nice little inclusion to the story. You don't have to read this if you don't want to, it's just like a nice little add-on. So I was looking for a short audiobook to fill in just a couple of hours, and I think this one ended up getting 3 stars from me because, like I said, it's not essential to read this, but it is really soothing to listen to this narrator, so I did enjoy my experience with it. Next up, we have Two Wolves by Tristan Banks. This one got 3.5/4 stars from me, and I read this one via audiobook. Now, the main reason I picked up this book is because I wanted to read something by this author who is well known for his book Detention. I get a lot of schools at work asking for this, so I wanted to start something by him and see what he's all about. So Two Wolves is told from Ben Silver's perspective. Ben is a young teenage boy who one day comes home from school and his parents have packed the car up, and him and his younger sister Olive are told that they're going on a family holiday. Except for just before this happened, some cops rocked up at his door and were asking after his parents. So there is something going on in the background. They've never been on a family holiday before, and now their parents are acting a little bit sketchy. Ben has also always wanted to become a detective. His father calls him Cop as a nickname because he asks so many questions and he's very inquisitive, and he starts to compile his own evidence throughout this of what could be going on. And this was a tricky one to categorize because I feel like it's middle grade, but it's the cusp of middle grade and teen fiction because of some of the content in this. And by that, I don't mean content warnings, I just mean the feeling of this narrator was not juvenile, but in the middle grade, but then some of the topics discussed were teen fiction. So a really good one for boys on the teenage cusp, I think. And I loved seeing this story through Ben's perspective because it's kind of him breaking down his faith in his parents, or trying to realize who is good and who is bad and the grey areas in between. There's also the analogy which comes up in the title, which is which wolf do you feed, the good or the bad? So there was a lot of good stuff happening in this one, and I really enjoyed it. I also really liked the narrator of this one because I did listen to it via audiobook, because he just captured that young voice while also bringing some maturity into it, but essentially just that cusp teenage year, because I think Ben is 12, 13, I don't know, but it's that in-between age where everything is just a little bit tricky. And the voice actor for this just did a really good job of capturing that emotion. The second to last book that I finished for the month of November was You'll Be the Death of Me by Karen M. McManus. This is the ARC copy, so it looks a little bit different to the finished cover, which looks like this. I did a spoiler-free reading vlog for this as well as a spoiler-free review, so I will leave one of those linked up above and both of them down below for you to have a look at. I won't go too much further into this because I have done both of those things and you can find them on my channel, but essentially this is signature Karen M. McManus teen crime. You have your 3 main characters, Cal, Ivy, and Mateo, who used to be friends in middle school but then drifted apart, and now as teenagers, one day they all rock up to school late and they decide to skip for old time's sake. Except for, unfortunately, this day that they decide to skip, they find themselves in a crime scene situation. So overall, I ended up giving this one a 3 stars. I did enjoy it. There was Karen M. McManus's signature short chapters with cliffhangers at the end, a little bit of teen romance and secrets and intrigue and all of that. I do think that her writing style is getting a little bit formulaic, and I did feel that towards the end here I had to suspend my disbelief in some spots because there were some things that were just a little bit too convenient, but other than that, still not a bad read at all. I will also quickly mention 2 content warnings for this, and that is an inappropriate relationship between a student and a teacher. It doesn't go too graphic into it, it's just more the yearning side of things and the emotional turmoil of that. And the second thing was the opioid epidemic is mentioned heavily in this, and there is drug dealing and things like that. So be aware of those 2 going into it, but overall, yes, this book is a binge-worthy teen crime read. Also, shout out to Penguin and the lovely people at work who did source an advanced reader copy for me to read. And then the last book that I finished was Trust by Chris Hammer. I consumed this one via audiobook, and this one got a 3.5 stars from me. So over the last couple of months, I have been going back through Chris Hammer's backlist and listening to them via audiobook. I have now read 3 of his books, I think, and enjoyed them all. He is an Australian crime author, so this is adult crime. And in this one, we again follow a character from 2 of his previous novels, Martin Scarsden, and he is a journalist involved again in an active crime situation. Unlike some of the other settings of Chris Hammer's books, which have been in the Australian outback or more of the bush type setting, this one takes place in Sydney. And I feel like this is one of the author's major strengths. His atmospheres that he builds are so realistic, and they just make you feel like you are right there standing in that situation. So this definitely had more of a city vibe, obviously being in Sydney, than some of his others that I've read that have been in the outback with the dirt and the humidity and that feeling. So a different tone to this one, but I still did enjoy it. And essentially this book kicks off when Martin arrives home and his partner Mandy is missing, but there is an unconscious policeman in his living room. From there, the story moves to Sydney because they are residing in Port Silver from the previous novel, and down to Sydney we go, and we get a dual perspective in this one. We get Martin and we also get Mandy, which was very interesting because this book discusses her past, which is briefly touched upon in Scrublands. I haven't read Silver yet, but I know that she is in that one as well, so I'm guessing she comes up in that one too. But we get more of her past life in this one, which was interesting to see. We again have major themes of corruption within organizations, of power, and of the role that privilege plays in our society. So I love Chris Hammer for the fact that he gives you so much plot and detail, and he somehow wraps it up really, really nicely as well. He has so much control over his narrative without being heavy-handed, and I just really enjoy his crime novels. So definitely keen to pick up Silver next, and then I think I am all caught up on his backlist. I will also just quickly say there were moments in this which had my heart racing, and he builds climactic points really well, and just so well done, so well written. Did only get a 3.5 from me though, because it's not my favorite of his. I think I really, really love how he writes the Australian landscape. So being a country girl as well, maybe that's why. Maybe the Sydney setting just felt like a concrete jungle to me, not something that I enjoy personally as much, but the writing was still phenomenal. Just a personal preference on setting. I also love the audiobook narrator for these books as well. It's the same person who does his other ones, and it just feels really nice and familiar when I pick up a book by them now. Okay, so that was it. Those were the 6 books that I read in the month of November. Like I said, I usually read a little bit more, not that it's a competition for myself, but I'm usually averaging about 7 or 8 books, I think, but we are reading The Eye of the World at the moment, the First Wheel of Time book, so I think I need to cut myself a little bit of slack there. But overall, that was my experiences with the books that I did read last month. As always, you can find me on my socials down below. Don't forget to chuck a like on this video and subscribe if you want to see future content from me. And that's going to be it for today. We're in December already of 2021, and that is blowing my mind. So here's to a busy month. I will see you in my next video. I hope you're doing well out there. That was out of order. We're already chaotic. Thanks for watching. Bye.